got a problem with animating your rigid body tanks, have I don't even want to. Hey guys, today I'll be showing you how to make a proper steering rig for a tank. I followed the tutorial of Arjan and McGavish. Arjan's tutorial is more up to date, but the problem is that the files are corrupted and it is pretty difficult to follow. So if you fix that, I would be grateful. I'll link both of the videos in the description. I would recommend using McGavish's tutorial as much as you can. If you don't understand something because of the old Blender version, then you should hop on to Arjan's tutorial, and yeah, that's basically it. I had a problem with the suspension, but turns out if you like mess around with the values a bit, that should fix it. So hopefully you have no problem catching up. Anyways, the original steering is by McGavish, but the problem is you control it by dragging a little empty along Blender space, I guess. So the problem with that is it's really flimsy to control, and it is notoriously difficult to like when you're going around a track such as the one I made here. I'll be using it later. But for now, let's get right into it. For our control panel would be the McGavish style steering rig. I know it's really confusing, but especially to control. But the thing is that once we make our control panel, all the confusion is gonna go away, and the steering is gonna control our steering object, like the McGavish steering object, so that it's not any more confusing than it has to be. So there's gonna be a throttle control, a steering, and a power. So that's what we're gonna do, but for now let's start by creating the McGavish steering. The McGavish steering consists mostly of drivers because it uses the empty object as a controller for our motor constraint. Okay, anyways, let's start by adding a driver and putting it to setting it to 2 times var. By the way, var stands for variable, so once we've done that, we're gonna have to search in the object box for 0 to 4, or don't search for 0 to 4. Search for the number that your empty object is. For me, it's 0 to 4, but depending on how you created the rig, it can change. The way you know is you just click on the object and it will say right up here. I mean, that's kind of obvious. You should know that by now if you're making a tank. Anyways, let's go back to editing the driver. Set this to Y location and local space. Now we've got a forward and backward control on our tank rig. But there's still a problem. How do we turn it? We do that by adding an input variable. Now this is going to be really confusing, and it's going to show something completely different to this one. So you just click this and add a transform channel. Keep it at X location and select local space. Select the same empty again, because why not, and once you've done that, rename this to var2 because it's way easier to type. And wait, what? No, don't do that. Okay, now once we've done that, add a 2 at the end to change the variable of the multiplication to var2. As you can see, this variable 2 is that variable 2. You put some brackets around it and add a minus variable written to the side, just var. Please do not write variable every time I say variable. That's going to be really confusing and it's going to mess you up. Before we move on, you might want to set this to minus. And you're going to think, oh god, do I have to do all of this all over again on the other side? But no, as you can see, I just copied it and I can just right click paste. But there's a little problem. If both of them are set to minus 2 times variable 2, before you play, always remember, always, to save it. Quick save, actually, don't do that. That's just painful to watch. So For Mac users, it's Command S. For Windows users, it's Control S. I am pretty sure the Control S works on Macs as well. So let's go ahead and test it if it doesn't crash. As you can see, it does turn and it is working perfectly alright. Damn, that looks like a bit of drifting, but as you can see, it works now. But now, let's move on to the, oh my god, no. Let's move on to the controls panel. My control panel consists mostly of drivers as well, but what will be driving is not the motor constraint, but our little MT right here. There might be better ways to do this, but as far as I know, this is the best I've come up with. So this is a couple of years old, this idea. I haven't tried it in 3.0, so this is going to be a learning experience for me as well. So let's start with a new layout. You don't need it, but I'm just doing this to show you how to set it up. So how you add a control panel area is by going to this little gap here until your cursor becomes a plus, and you just drag it across. Like, what is going on? Yeah, like that. That was embarrassing. Anyways, then we drag this across so that it's roughly a square. It doesn't need to be exactly a square because it's just, we're just gonna turn it into another viewport, but not here, not here. Just gonna move that there and zoom in. Okay, my steering rig is gonna consist mostly of drivers like the McGavish rig, steering rig, except there'll be one difference is that I'm gonna be driving this empty right here instead of the motor constraints. There might be better ways to do this, but as far as I know, this is the simplest I've come across. So the secondary viewport is about there somewhere. So let's add a steering object. We're just gonna use a torus because I mean it's obvious. It's obvious. You can't really. There's nothing that resembles a steering. Oh my god, that's fast. And now make sure your cursor is in this viewport, or else it's just gonna zoom us in here, like so. So once your cursor's in, you have zoomed in, you officially have a steering object. As I told you before, I have never done this before, so if I do something stupid, I am either gonna edit it out or blame me in the comments for forgetting to. I'm just gonna clear that out of the way. Now, there's a location Y and X. By the way, the Y is what controls the forward backwards. X is what controls the right and left. Let's start by adding a driver, and this is a Y location, so we need to add a throttle object as well. So we're gonna add a icosphere, because that seems very low quality, but also it's also like a knob style thing, like something you'd expect out of a gear, you know, of a car. I am struggling here. Okay, now that we have got that right, let's size it down so that it looks about the right size. And boom. Okay, so let's edit this driver. And let's select our icosphere. Select var and select Y location. What that's gonna do is the more we move this on the Y location, the more that's gonna move. We might want to move this up a bit so that it's a bit more realistic. You could say that it's a bit more realistic. It's more of an opinion really that the knobs, if they stay at the bottom, they look way more realistic to me. Your choice. This is completely customizable. The location of this torus is not going to affect your steering by any means, because we're not going to be using the location to steer the tank. We're going to use the rotation. So basically we're going to have to edit the driver, and actually we don't have to do that. So this is what's simple about this is the fact that in the other one you're gonna have to mess with the variables, input variable and you know complex stuff. But in this one, just the steering is on the x-axis and the acceleration is on the y, so that just makes it a whole lot simpler for us. We're gonna add a driver on the y location and we're gonna select our torus object here. Once we've selected the torus, we're gonna have to change the x location to z rotation, and we've set it to 2 times the variable. We can keep it at world space because or else it doesn't work for some reason, as I've experimented with and I had to trash that recording. But let's test this out. Moment of truth, guys. So if this moves while I turn it, holy crap, yes it does. And this is gonna have to, no way. But there's a problem though, there's still a problem. There's always problems. We're gonna have to edit the Y driver and we're gonna have to set that to minus. What that does is basically if you move this forward, it goes forward instead of the alternate issues that, as we've said, as I promised, we're not gonna have on my control panel setup. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to duplicate this little icosphere. Here that we just duplicated is actually for the power controls. What this does is it increases the power. Once we go to the physics tab in the motor controller, as you can see, this is the max impulse. That's basically our power as to what I've experimented. Even if you set this to 1, if you set the power at 1000, it's still gonna have plenty of power to go over bumps and mountains and little, not mountains, little hills mostly. But we need to control this. So we're gonna set that back to 1000 and we're gonna add a driver there. What this does, it increases our power no matter our speed. So we're gonna select our second icosphere, which is gonna be named 001 as per Blender. And we're gonna select the Y location. Once we select the Y location, we're gonna keep that at local space so that it's set to 1000 by default. So the plus 1000, it doesn't really work because there's not enough sensitivity. The way you can fix that is by adding a multiplier at the side of war. As you can see, if I move our little icosphere forward, there's a very little difference, exactly 1.429, which is really not that much. That's not going to affect us at all. And not just that, it's really annoying to keep resetting it like I am right now. Instead, you can just lock the other location axes like so. You just click. And you now don't have to press G plus Y, it just does all the work for you. Isn't that great? And when you press Alt G, it doesn't go all the way back. Do that to the other one, and you're pretty much all set for controlling the icospheres. Back to the variable, we're gonna have to add a maybe 4 times variable. So that means it's gonna multiply the y location value of the icosphere by 4 and add 1000. That's what this does. You're gonna have to tweak a lot to get a really good result. So see you after tweaking. I've arrived at a conclusion that about 500 is a nice amount. It almost doubles, it actually more than doubles our amount when you go the length of the torus. I'm using the torus as a measurement because I want the control panel to be about the same size as the torus. So now I'm gonna test it, see how well it works. Oh wait, never mind. That's not supposed to happen. I think I'm just gonna change the variable. So the way you change it is by removing the minus in our y variable. because Y is the one that makes the tank move forward. So once you've alternated that, it should work pretty well, and it is. Oh joy, it's working very well. I feel tired as heck now. So this is just a test run. I'm going to speed through it because it is really tedious and long. It's a track I made, but the tank is pretty slow. I mean, most tanks are in real life, and off we go. Now we're gonna do some final touches. This is basically, we're gonna be kind of tweaking all the elements, so adjusting the sensitivity until it reaches the sweet spot, and then we'll be adding some color to this world, mostly to the control panel, because the tank is all yours. You're gonna have to customize it. So I'm gonna let you do that, but right now let's adjust the sensitivity. You want the sensitivity of the throttle to be higher because it just controls the speed, but you want the torus to be lower, mark my words, or else it's just gonna go crazy all over the place. It's gonna keep doing tank turns randomly and spinning out. So, see you after a bit of tweaking. Now, let's add some color to this world. Obviously, if you want to see color in Blender, you gotta switch to material mode. And then we're gonna go to the material settings. Wait, this is not the, okay, never mind. And then once we get there, we're gonna add a new material. This is gonna be the color of the torus itself, or our steering, and this new one is gonna be our little marker to show exactly how much we turned. Let's go tab into edit mode and let's alt select some faces. Make sure you press 3 before doing this to go into face selection mode, and we're gonna click assign. Once we have done that, we're gonna change the original color to, let's just say, a military green, because why not? Let's fit the aesthetic, shall we? And wait, no, not that dark, that's like swamp green. Yeah, this sounds about right. Let's repeat that for that one.
Make that green so that, same reason. It's the aesthetic. And the last one,
It's gonna be different though. We're gonna add an emission shader instead.
because it's sort of like an emergency button type of thing, except it increases the power, because evidence are just messing with that.
So that's it for this video, guys. See you later. See you in another one. Subscribe, like, and preferably leave a comment down below suggesting anything at all. I'd be happy to reply. I'll always be on YouTube. Wait, what? No, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean no.